How do you make meetings more effective?
Part of what I talked about was looking at the list of attendees and really trying to put myself in their shoes quickly before the meeting to understand, hey, what are they trying to get out of this? I also do that during the meeting. Um, and I think it can be it's a learned skill, certainly. Um, People I think may have more or less sensitivity to it. I have a very high sensitivity to social perception and understanding sort of what are people feeling in the moment. Um, it's a super interesting job, and it's something that I didn't know a lot about. But producers of shows, so producers of especially TV shows and radio shows, movies to a lesser extent, but really more of that like active, assembled, live or near live media. Um, that's what the producer is doing, right? They are empathizing with the audience and they're saying, "How is this landing?" Right? And that informs everything from how long they spend on segments, how quickly they transition, what types of topics they bring up, how they do follow ons. There's a whole lot that goes into thinking about the experience of the media. And I think about meetings that way. So every meeting, hopefully if I'm sort of awake enough and I'm not worn out, which is another reason, you should have limits on how much you engage with, is I'm thinking about that impact on every person in that meeting. And, if it's a 250 person meeting, you just have to scale up and you have to think, okay, in categories of people, right? Like, what does this mean for uh, inexperienced engineers, right? They've been here for 2 months. How's it landing for them? Versus super experienced engineers who've been here for 10 years. How's it landing on them? Versus product managers versus whoever, right? So I think in archetypes, and it's nice when that resolves to a single person because then you can sort of ask them afterward to verify. Um, but I will think about that and I will use that to push the meeting along, to redirect topics, to ask for things to be broken out into a separate meeting. Um, and I really sort of provide that hand where it sort of feels like, the meeting is being moved along. It's not happening at sort of the slow pace of real time of just whenever somebody realizes they should speak up. So I really think of meetings as more being something you conduct than something you experience. And the really nice thing about that is once you've worked with a team for a while, everybody can take on that role. Everybody can actually participate in conducting the meeting, and you'll establish a flow. You'll establish an understanding of who should speak up when and who could push what forward. And that is almost the best thing about working with a team is when you find that level of flow together. And I find that it did well now, especially it definitely shows up in meetings. So I certainly do that. And then I would say the other thing is, every sort of meeting hack, productivity podcast ever would say, make sure you have clean follow-ups for your meetings, right? Know what your action items are. Um, and I think that's true. I think, though, the approach to how you follow up is very important, or it's important to me because again, every interaction with somebody on your team, or especially somebody on another team that you don't work with often, that's an opportunity to build more trust. That's an opportunity to display a behavior that they might be looking to model. That's an opportunity to build a relationship that you too can later draw from. And so I've always appreciated, especially program managers, right, who are often sort of really take the brunt of coordination in these very unwieldy large initiatives, and they have to find follow-ups, is if they can find a way to follow up with each person on a level that makes sense to them, right? Bridge the human connection, try to communicate with empathy, and have a conversation about it, right? I'm not a big fan of like, here's the email summary, all of the follow up items are, on a bulleted list. I find that to be, sort of very robotic, and it's a missed opportunity, I think. So something I try to do, even if it's just a Slack message or something, is follow up personally and verify understanding, try to understand if they agreed with the follow up, with the outcome that implied their action item, right? And then to even get like a mini update on how they're feeling about the overall initiative, right? It's these micro interactions just all day long that I think give you feedback loops, but also power to influence. And then if you do that long enough over time, it also gives those people the power to read feedback loops and to influence themselves. And I think that's, to me, that's the sign of like a truly high functioning team.